I recently took a trip to London expecting a cup of tea with the Queen's English, but what I found felt more like a world tour. Stepping off the plane, I was surrounded by conversations in Hindi, Arabic, Mandarin, you name it. It seemed like native English accents were the minority. London's famous multiculturalism isn't just a buzzword, it's visible everywhere. In fact, Greater London's population is only about 37% white British, as of the 2021 census, meaning native Brits are literally outnumbered in their own capital. Over 40% of London residents were born abroad, so if you feel like central London is more international than Old Blighty, you're not wrong. Now outside of London, things used to be more traditionally British, or so I thought. Yet even in many towns and cities beyond the M25, I noticed a lot of immigrant communities. From the curry houses of Birmingham, to Polish grocers in small English villages, the UK's demographic landscape has clearly shifted. About 16% of the UK's population was born abroad as of 2021, and that proportion has been rising fast. This dramatic influx of people from Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe and beyond has sparked a lively debate. Is immigration on this scale good or bad for Britain in the long run? Like a proper documentary, with a dash of dry British humor, let's explore both sides of this disputable question. We'll sip some statistics, nibble on arguments, and maybe throw in a cheeky joke or two for good measure. The UK has seen record-high immigration lately, even after Brexit, which was supposed to take back control of the borders. In 2022, net migration hit an estimated 606,000, the highest ever recorded, meaning the UK gained over 500,000 people in 1 year just from migration, equivalent to adding a city the size of Glasgow. Updated figures suggest it may have been even higher, and provisional data for 2023 showed net migration still around 700 to 800k. Since 2020, immigration has accounted for 98% of the UK's population growth. Basically, without new immigrants, Britain's population would hardly be growing at all. Those are the facts on the ground. The question is, what do they mean for the country? Reactions range from great, more talent and culture to help, we're full. Let's weigh some pros and cons of this immigration-heavy demography. Despite some economic benefits, which we will outline later in the video, not everyone is raising a glass to mass immigration. In fact, public opinion in Britain has tilted toward, we have too many coming in. A recent Ipsos poll found 67% of Britons believe the number of people entering the UK is too high, with 43% saying it's much too high. So what are the main concerns and negative impacts people point to? Many Britons worry that the traditional social cohesion, the glue that holds communities together, is weakening. In a cohesive society, neighbors share common values, trust each other, and have a sense of solidarity. Sudden diversity can shake that up. Studies from the US have found higher diversity can initially reduce trust and community bonds. When you walk down your childhood street and every shop sign is in a language you don't understand, it can be jarring. As Baroness Louise Casey, the UK's former integration czar, put it, some areas have changed beyond recognition in a short time. Some long-time residents feel like strangers in their own country. That sentiment, whether you consider it justified or just nostalgic, is very real and politically potent. It fueled phenomena like Brexit, which was driven in part by a desire to slow immigration and preserve a sense of British identity. In an ideal world, immigrants and natives mix freely, learning from each other. In reality, people often stick to what's familiar. Britain now has some highly segregated communities, ethnic enclaves where integration is minimal. For instance, there are neighborhoods in northern England with huge South Asian Muslim populations and very few natives, and vice versa. If you have schools where almost none of the kids speak English at home, integration faces an uphill battle. The fear is that instead of a melting pot, Britain gets a patchwork of parallel societies, separate cultures, separate languages, even separate legal norms. A country within a country breeds mistrust. In extreme cases, it can lead to ghettoization and radicalization. The UK has seen homegrown terrorist incidents and cultural clashes. For example, the 2005 London bombings were by British-born extremists of immigrant descent, and more recently, tensions like the 2022 Leicester communal unrest between Hindu and Muslim youth. While diversity is celebrated, there's an underlying question. How much diversity is too much for social unity? At what point do you stop feeling the togetherness of being one nation? It's a tough balancing act. Immigration sometimes exposes differing values and norms. The UK, for instance, has liberal views on gender equality, LGBTQ rights, free speech, etc., while some immigrant origin communities may hold more conservative or traditional views. There have been controversies, from the infamous Rotherham grooming gang scandal where a group of men predominantly of Pakistani heritage horrifically abused local girls, and authorities initially hesitated to act decisively, possibly fearing accusations of racism, or debates over religious practices, halal meat, hijabs in schools, etc. Such incidents are often seized upon by anti-immigration voices as evidence that they don't share our values. Of course, crimes and misdeeds aren't unique to any group, but when they happen across cultural lines, they inflame tensions. Likewise, if immigrants perceive Britain as unwelcoming or hostile, they might retreat further into their own communities, worsening the divide. It's a vicious cycle. Lack of integration breeds mistrust on both sides. With rapid demographic change, there's been a political backlash. The UK has seen the rise of populist movements from UKIP to the Brexit Party, largely pushing anti-mass immigration agendas. Even the mainstream parties feel pressure, hence pledges to stop the boats and reduce numbers. Far-right protests have occurred. For example, in 2024, some groups took to the streets against migrants being housed in their towns. While Britain thankfully hasn't seen extremist parties gain major power, the tension is palpable. Hate crimes spiked after events like the Brexit vote. On the flip side, immigrant communities sometimes feel under siege or scapegoated for society's problems. For policymakers, it is a difficult situation, because one cannot deny the benefits of immigration to the whole economy. Immigration generally boosts the UK economy by expanding both demand, such as renting homes, buying goods, paying taxes, and supply by adding workers and entrepreneurs. Migrants being typically younger and often highly educated raises productivity and eases budget pressures. It helps plug chronic labor gaps across the NHS and social care, as well as construction, agriculture, hospitality, and tech. Increased labor supply can keep business costs and consumer prices lower, with overall wage effects small but slightly downward for some low-paid roles. Beyond economics, immigrants drive innovation in startups and research, and enrich British culture, from food to music and sport, underpinning the cosmopolitan dynamism that helps the UK punch above its weight globally. Policymakers also recognize the economic downsides of letting migration run too hot. The UK's long-running housing shortage is intensified by high immigration, adding demand that pushes up prices and rents, especially in London and the southeast, and even straining utilities. Public services feel it too. The NHS and schools face heavier caseloads in high immigration areas, creating a catch-22 where the health service relies on migrant staff, but must also serve more patients. Labor market effects are mixed. Overall wage impacts are small, though lower paid, semi- and unskilled roles can see slight downward pressure, fueling perceptions of job competition. On public finances, most research finds immigration's net effect is modest, around ±1% of GDP. Skilled migrants tend to contribute more, while some low-skilled family entrants can cost more. There are so many foreigners in London that the pigeons have started cooing in multiple languages. Jokes aside, it's clear that the current scale of immigration is testing Britain's ability to absorb and integrate newcomers without social friction. Britain's challenge is to reap the benefits of new talent and ideas without losing social cohesion and identity. Can the UK have its cake and eat it too? Enjoy cultural diversity and economic growth yet still feel like one nation? The jury's still out. Until then, if you visit London and barely hear a native English accent, don't be alarmed. It's the new normal. Just remember to enjoy the samosas with your fish and chips, because this is Britain now. An old country with a new face, trying to figure out its future one immigrant at a time. Tell us about your recent experience in the UK in the comments below. We would love to hear from you.